So far, our applications are linear. They start somewhere and they're going downwards one statement at a time, right? One line at a time, until the moment they reach the end, right? This linearity allows us to define how our application should process one step at a time. However, in real world application, when we have a problem and we're creating an algorithm, this code, when we're creating an algorithm, it can't always be this straightforward. Sometimes we need to deviate a little bit to define what's going on, right? So normally our application going downwards, this is a flowchart, by the way, from the start being this parentheses and the end being this final one. It can't always go in a straightforward one step at a time manner. Sometimes we have to tell our application, well, I'm not going to go straight down, but I'm going to do one of these two things, depending what happens. These are our conditional statements. So, sorry, where's my pen? There we go. So inside our algorithm, our step-by-step solution, that's what algorithm means. Inside our algorithm, we would sometimes have a condition where this question that we pose, where this relational operator will determine what we would do afterwards. So either it would go this direction or this direction, right? This, remember that inside of this, it's a relational operator. It's basically a true or false question. So this allows us to determine if it's true, do this specific thing, and if it's false, do something else, right? So something like this. Mind you, this is still linear, meaning that at the start, it will still go towards the end. Just in this last little condition, it could take one of these two routes, but still reach the end of our application. And this is really important because not all solutions is going to be that straightforward as doing 10 steps and you're done. You have to determine where you're at or determine what's going on. And based on that, do either one of these statements. Okay? So you got to understand in conditional statements, what we're looking for inside our question is not really a question, but a true or false answer. And this will allow us to derive or to deviate one direction or the other. Okay? So let's try that quickly what this is. Normally you would see these conditional statements and we would normally call them if statements. So let's take a value and let's say what we could do. So let's say I'm listening to I want to listen to YouTube, right? Let's say me as the YouTuber, I want to think if it's good idea to put ads in my videos or not, or should I monetize or etc. And putting those ads will depend on my views. If I get enough views, well, let's say if I have no views, if I have, let's say, under 100 views, well, it's not worth it for me to put ads. One, I'm going to lose the minimum people that are pushing me to the top, that are becoming normal followers. They're becoming subscribers. Actually, let's go ahead and erase this part over here. So we're just going to erase a little bit. So starting our application, we're going to determine what's the best course of action to see if we could make some money out of our videos. So the first thing is we're going to have a certain amount of views, right? So this line 5, it would be our views over here. And currently it's equal to 50. Now, this amount of views is less than 100. If it's less than 100, I should not touch anything and I should leave it alone. Why? Because these views are going to help me generate more. People are going to come back. They're going to say, hey, I like your videos. There's no publicity, no ads. It's to the point. We learn stuff. So if the views, here it's a bit too tight. If the views is less than 100, well, don't do anything and keep doing the good work, right? So if, let's say if that's true, well, we want to keep doing whatever we're doing. Publish new videos, right? So let's say publish here. And then, well, obviously it's going to go to the end. Oops. Let's say end. So the arrows are always going downwards. I might forget to put the arrowheads. So how would we do that in code? Well, this is the first line. This is our start, actually. That's our start that we saw. This is our next thing that we see here. Views equal 50. We're initializing a variable. Maybe we'll get that value from the internet, something like that. Then we got to give a condition. When should I, let's say, when should I put ads or if I should publish? I'm going to say if those views, I'm going to say if it's less than 100, then we just want to publish more. So here you would put the code for publish. Mind you, I don't have anything code-wise, right? And here what we're expecting is for the views to get bigger. So maybe I could run this code on a daily basis to see is my views at 50 or 100 or 1,000 and move forward. So notice that there's a little warning here. And the warning is basically saying that this is always going to be true. And that's obvious because we're the one who entered the value. Later on, we're going to grab that value from elsewhere. It could even be the user who enters those values, right? The point being is we want to just show that in a condition, it could be that this part could get run or it could just do something else. Now, mind you, my example is not the best here, but let's go make it a bit more complicated like normally. So let's put out a little print line and we're going to say, let's say publish. And right before it, we're going to say another print and we're just going to say, I don't know, start, let's say as an example. We could put it right after or right before. It doesn't really matter, these two lines. But our condition is afterwards. Again, we're still going linear. We're going top to bottom, one statement at a time. However, now, what's going to happen is this is going to run. Then it's going to ask this question. Notice the question is going to return us a true or false value. And in this case, it's always going to be true. If it's true, we're going to do this. And afterwards, let's say after if statement. And after this if statement, we're going to run this. So if we run this right now, and while it's running, I'm going to just update my drawing. This last line over here, it still has to do it. So erase. And look what I'm doing this. I'm going to clean it up my screen. 1 second. What's going to happen? It's either case, it's going to do print something. Print this little line over here. So let's analyze this for a second. Okay. So on our output, you'll notice first we see line number 6. Start. So line 5 initialize our views. Then it went to line 6. It outputted start to my my console. Then at line 8 we have an if statement, and obviously it was true because 50 is less than 100. So it went inside what we call the body. This thing and this forms the body. So anything in between them is the body. You should have noticed that we're already inside the body of a function. We'll talk about functions later. But inside the body is where the code is. So inside this conditional statements body, this if statements body, is the code that should be ran when it's true, when the condition is true. Right? In this case, it's true. So we're running line number 9, publish. And when the body is finished, well, our code continues, right? Until it reaches the end. This part is the end. So until it reaches the end, it will have to go line 11, line 12, line 13, and so forth, so on. So at line 12, we publish after if statement. Okay, I hope that's a bit clear. Go back on the video if need be. But what would happen if the if statement is false? Well, in the case where our views is over 100, so let's say it's 150. So let's not make to make it too confusing. 150 basically means that this statement, right, is false. 150 is less than 100, false. So this body will never get run. Anything between the curlies of the if statement, of the conditional statement, is not ran. So if we run it again, you'll notice that this time we only have two outputs, the start and after if statements, right? Because this is false, the body of the if statement is not going to run. So we're not going to do this, but our application is not finished until we reach the end of our application, right? This part. So if we look at it inside, our flow chart, I like these flow charts because it tells us how our application is running. So our application starts. This is our start. Inside that, we got two statements running. There's views, and actually there's one more. I didn't put it, which is this print over here. Print, okay? So this is views, and then it goes to print, right? It goes top to bottom, one statement at a time. Then we got our condition. That's line 8. This is line 8, so not to put too many lines. On our condition, we ask, is views less than 100? Well, right now it's at 150. If that's true, we would go and print publish, as you could see here, right? This statement is true. There's true. If it's true, it's going to follow this flow. If it's false, however, it's going to follow the other flow, the false flow. So in this case, it's going to do nothing. It's just going to end our conditional body and just go to continuing wherever we left off. In this case, continuing the body of our main application until it reaches the end. So this is our end. So the next thing to do is line 12, which you could see here, line 12. And this one is line 9. Right? Take a second to notice this flow. It's really interesting because this allows our application, our algorithm, to go in different directions or to be able to do a little nudge and do something special if the case requires it. Right? Okay, let's go and make this a bit more interesting and maybe a better, something a bit more interesting than views and so on. Actually, before we move on from this views, I just wanted to tell you that over here, again, we're not really interested inside this question. What we're really interested is that it's true or false. So what that means is if I wanted to, I could just type in the Boolean value that I want there. Is that wise? No, because we're really just going to do what's inside. But this is what it expects. So anything you put in there until the result comes out to being true, well, then we're fine. Especially in the last video, we talked about relational operators. Each one of these questions gave us a Boolean value, and this is why it's important. And we're not going to cover it in this video because we already did. So let's just run it. Now, because it's true, we should also see publish. Right? But the thing is, let me go ahead and clean up our screen a little bit. The thing is, right now, we're kind of limited to it's either going to do this or not. We're not really going with two options. We're just doing it's either going to do it or it's not going to do it, and then it's going to continue the flow. If we ever wanted that it does a different step based on this question, well, we could also add that inside our if statement. So let's say we wanted to say, let's say I have enough views, so let's add ads. And then I want to continue where I left off. If I wanted to be able to do this, first I need to change this flow. And 1 second. Sorry, I'm learning the pens here. It's gonna take me a while to learn shortcut keys. I don't know them yet. So what we want to do is, based on this question, let's go back to normal. Based on this question, if it's true, I want to publish. If it's false, I want to add ads. This is where, again, English comes in. We want to use the word else. Right after the F body, so this is the body. Right after the F body, we want to add the word else, and we want to create a body of the else. So this basically means if this condition is false, we'll then go ahead and do the else part. This is the pink that we see over here. So on this part, we want to say ads, right? So if we run our application, you'll notice right now it's 150. So 150, is it less than 100? No, so it's false. So print ads. And then our application still continues. So we're still printing after if statement over here. We're printing, well, line 15 now. It was 12 before, right? So now we made a choice between A or B, between this or that. And this becomes important because now our algorithm will change based on a condition we give, based on a question we give. And this question, we could make it more interesting, all right? Let's make it a bit more interesting than what we've done here with views. So right now, where I live, it's started summer and it's raining as well. I want to determine if I should go play basketball or some sport with my friends. So for this to be able to happen, I need a couple things to happen. Okay? First, I need friends, but we're not going to put that in there. I need to have a ball, right? Any ball, consider it cricket, basketball, whatever it is that you like to play. And we're going to say this is a Boolean, right? So this over here, at this level, we're going to set it to true or false. I'm not going to put it inside our float. We're just going to say I need a ball. So I need a ball. And then I can't play by myself, so I need my friends to be willing to play with me. So I want to have friends. And again, we're going to say Boolean. So the friends wants to play or he doesn't want to play. We're going to put the value there. Again, we could have retrieved all of these values from the user, right? Or from a file or from anything. We're just learning the basics. And last but most importantly, I can't play anything if the condition outside is bad. So the last part is the weather, right? So this is important. So I need these three things for me to be able to play outside. Well, I need them in a specific condition for me to be able to play outside, right? So what I'm going to do, just to make sure I have enough space on my screen, is we're going to move these three things. Oops. I'm going to move these three, if it lets me. There we go. We're going to move these three things like right here, okay? And we're just going to say, so it's just a bit cleaner for me. We're just going to say that all of these three things are right here. Okay, and we'll make something for it. Now, the next thing is to ask these questions. Because depending on those questions, well, I can't really play outside, right? So what's the first question? Well, do I have a ball? If it's false, let's say false over here. And let me go shrink this little thing over here so we get a bit more visual Brown's background, good background. So if it's false, well, we can't play outside. Can't play. Let's say no play, just so I have enough to write, and our application finishes. So let's say N over here. Right? Pretty straightforward. But what if happens if I do have a ball? So true. Well, then I need to ask myself another question. Are my friends willing to play? I'm just going to say friends for F. are my friends are willing to play? Well, if they say false, what would happen? Let's put some arrows here. If they say false, well, again, same thing. No play. I can't play if my friends are not willing to play. I can't play by myself. What if they say yes? Well, they say yes. Well, then we have to check the last thing, and that's the weather. So if the weather is good, well, if the weather is bad, well, again, what would happen is we can't play, right? And it depends on the weather of what the game is, right? If it's hockey, it's indoors, etc., we might not care about the weather. This is a different question, but let's imagine that all of this requires a good weather outside. And if all three things are good, if all three things are true, then what would happen is we could play outside. Otherwise, we don't play, right? So if all three things are true, well, then we could play outside. So let's go and put that inside our code. This stuff, I'm going to erase it. We got the gist of the beginning. So right now, first thing first, we need to initialize three variables. I'm going to initialize booleans to make my life a bit easier. Actually, we'll make some of them boolean, some of them not. First thing I'm going to say is have ball. Good variable names. And I'm going to say for now true. Second is I'm going to say int for friends. So how many friends that want to play? So like this, we get a variation. So for now, we're going to say 0. And lastly, we're going to say boolean is weather good. Or actually, let's make it a bit more fun. String, we're going to say for now weather color. So is it rainy, or we're going to say weather, okay? I'm going to say rainy. Okay? So we have three different variables that determine a specific thing. One is you have a ball or not. Another, how many friends are willing to play outside? Maybe sometimes we need 5 friends to make a team to play against the other team. Or we need 10, 15, 20 players to be able to play baseball, cricket, or anything that takes a lot of players before it's actually fun. Or lastly, depending on the weather, we could play outside or we can't play at all. So how would this be inside our code? So we're going to start our flow. And our flow right now, if you could see it, we're done with this. We're here at our question. The first question is, do we have a ball? So we're going to say, if have ball is true. Now, because this is already a Boolean, I could just leave it like that inside our question, and it's perfectly fine. If you want to, you could also specify to make it a bit clearer for yourself at the beginning. If have ball equal true, so if the value of this Boolean is true, do something. But this is the same as not having it. It doesn't matter because the end result is a Boolean, true or false. So if we have a ball, then we want to go to the next one. Right. Switch here. Then we're going to next one, right? This is true or false. Now, this is a bit weird because look, we have a true, but we also have a false. In the case of false, there's nothing really special happening, so I don't need an else. I could make something special, such as saying, if I don't have a ball, say no play. But for now, it doesn't have anything special, so we could come back to it. Let's say for now, we leave this one blank, okay? So we're inside the second question. There's 2 ways of doing a second question. The first way, is to make it inside the body of the first one. So if the first one is true, we go in the body and we ask another question. Friends want to play is bigger than 0. If I got more than 0 friends want to play, then I could go ahead and play, right? There's another way, and we'll come back to it. But for now, this is fine. And then, again, we're going to ignore the false for now for a second. And then we got another question. Is the weather correct? So let's say if the weather is blue, right? If the weather I'm going to say it like this. It's not the correct way of doing a string comparison, but we'll come back to that later. Again, string is a bit special. For now, this, we're going to leave it like that. It's perfectly fine. So if the weather equals blue, so if it's true, then we want to say play. Right? And all of these other cases, I want to say no play. Now, if you think about it for a second, where should I write no play for this to work correctly? Well, you could pause it, try it out. Let's go and think about this. What if, as you notice, there's nothing special out of these three. So in all three cases, I could just write no play. So here, I could write no play. Right? And you're like, this will work. Notice that the weather is currently raining. The players is 0, so this or this will be false. So if I run it, it should say no play. And that's perfect. Right? Now let's try it where it works. So I have the ball, so this is true. Friends want to play. It needs to be more than 0, so let's say 1. And then weather needs to be blue. Well, actually, before we change weather, let's run it again. It should still be no play because the weather is different. Good. And over here, I'm going to change it to blue. Now, in this case, all three conditions are true, and we should get to line 12, our play. So we run it. We got play, but notice something extra happened. Even though we got our play, we got our nor play. It seems like rather than going from play to end, it went from play to no play. Can you figure out what the issue is? Well, in this case, this line 16, our no play, is not part of an else statement. It's not part of doing this or that. It's part of the normal flow of our application. So when the condition is finished, it goes back to the normal flow, and this is what's going on, and we got this no play. So how can I fix that? Where can we put this to fix this issue? Well, you're going to say, well, why not just do it in an else statement here? Oops. Let me clean this up. Why not just do an else statement here so that this no play belongs to the condition? So only if it's false for the ball will I play the no play. So now, if I run it, if I find my, there we go. If I run it, you'll notice that it fixed the problem. We got play. But we gotta always try out every different scenarios of our application to make sure there's no bugs. But what if, let's say first one, I don't have a ball. So now that I don't have a ball, I can't play, so it should show me no play. And this is going to be fine. We got our no play, right? The condition of this is false, directly go to no play. Okay, so let's bring back that to true. Let's change the friends to negative. So we're going to say 0. So now we don't have enough friends to play. If I press play, you'll notice that this time it's not showing me anything, and that's because this was true. Let me try and make this a bit cleaner. So this part was true. Well, actually, let me write it here. This is true. And notice that this else is connected to the body of this one. Right? And because this was false, if this was false, well, then this else would run. But because it was true, we go inside the body of this condition, and then we're here. Notice that this was false. However, there is no else condition connected to it. And because of that, no messages will ever flow. So this flow that we drew up here, let me clean it up a bit. This this flow chart that we drew up here, the false doesn't go to this direction anymore. The false, what they're doing is they're going right here. Or you know what, directly to end. There's nothing afterwards, right? There's no statements after these if statements. So the moment that this is false, it will not do the body. And this else is connected to this F, so it will not do this either. It will directly come out here, and there's nothing else to do, right? If you want, let's go ahead and add, let me erase a little bit. Let's go ahead and add end here. So we could see it that it still gets outside of the conditional body, right? The only problem is this else is connected to this F statement. So notice the end is showing, but the no play is not showing, right? If we had all of it true, the play will be showing, and the end will be showing, right? So this is really important for us to understand. Same thing goes with the weather, right? If I go down, there's no else to it. There's no other option to it. Now, how could we fix this? Well, there's many ways of fixing it. One, you could add this else to all of them. Actually, to show you, well, no, let's not go there. So this else, we could go put there, and we could also go ahead and put it there. You're going to tell me, well, sir, you're doing a lot of extra work for no reason. I know. The whole point is to understand. More than that, we could play around with it and improve on it and so forth, so on. So right now, what's going on is that each one of them has a no play statement. So on the condition that any of them is false, they're going to play no play. However, let's just make sure this works. So if this is false, we should see no play here. Good. Let's bring it back to true. Let's make this one false. If we make this one false, we should again see no play. Good. And if this is actually, to make sure that we see that it's the correct no play, let's make it a bit better. So no play, no ball. No play, no friends. And no play, no good weather. Right? Just to make sure we differentiate one to the other one and we understand which one's running. This is important. You'll notice that coding is a lot about reading more than it's about coding and understanding your code. So right now, if all of them are good, all our conditions are true, we get play. If the first one is false, we get, I'm a bit zoomed in, so it's a bit hard to see here. We get no play, no ball. That's good. If the first one is true, but the second one is false, we get no play, no friends. So this one, right? Notice the F statements connections. This is one of the reasons we try to make sure our code is clean, because it's much easier to see these lines and these tabs. It enables us to see it faster rather than trying to guess which body is connected to which, right? So this one is connected to this one. Let's say this one. Notice it's connected to this one. So this F and else are connected. This this F and else is connected. And lastly, the outer one. This F and else is connected. Right? And this makes it easier for us to understand what would happen if it's false. And lastly, let's say blue is gray. And gray could be spelled A or E, depending where you come from. So that's great. We got 3 else statements for when I cannot play. And this is great because we go in a bit more in details. But before that, we just had no play. Now, one reason that this is a bit bad, a little bit, it depends how you do it, okay? It's not truly bad. But the problem that this is a little bit bad is that we have 3 locations where the condition of no playing happens. Why is that bad is means we have 3 locations that we need to update if ever our the thing we want to do when we cannot play happens to be true. The moment I cannot play, I want to do something. The problem with putting it in 3 different locations means I have to go and update those 3 locations whenever I want to do the same thing. One of the things that we're going to learn is to have clean code and to make sure that anything that's kind of repeating, hopefully we could put it in one location so that if in the future I need to update it, I don't forget one of them. The human error is our biggest problem. So how can we fix that? Well, that's pretty easy. These 3 conditions, for I to be able to play, all 3 conditions need to be true. So I need to have a ball and have more than 0 friends wanting to play, and have the weather being blue for me to be able to play. And in any other condition, it will not. The key word is our English. So if I could make a correct statement with that, well, then I could say, if I have the ball and my friends want to play is more than 0 and the weather is blue, then at that moment I could go ahead and play. At that moment, I don't need to specify all of these things, right? At that moment, notice what's going on. The moment that these 3 statements are true, I will play outside. Anytime else, well, we're not going to do any of this. There we go. Let's clean up our code a little bit. There we go. Now, this is great because in any of these 3 conditions, we're going to get no play, right? No play. Let's say the sky is blue. Well, now it's all true. I should get play. Let me just do all the conditions quickly. Play. We want to always test out our code. If we leave it for guess, or if we are really too much, we play into our own ego, we're going to get more problems than we're going to get solutions. Simple mistakes could cost us millions of dollars. We're going to talk about that later. So in this case, in any of these being false, I will go to no play, and all 3 being true, I will go into play. In this case, our condition looks a bit different. Our flowchart looks a little bit different. And this is important to understand because even though we were able to make the code, let's say, a bit more manageable, we also lost a bit of precision. And this is a bit bad. What do I mean by this? Our condition now is not only saying ball, but it's also saying, let's put it in a different color, and I lost my pen. There we go. And it's also saying, ball, do I have it? And do I also have enough friends that want to play? And do I also have the weather on my side? And when all 3 are true, at that moment I go play. Otherwise, I go no play. But the problem with doing this is we lost our precision. Notice before we were able to say what exactly the problem was. It was either we didn't have the ball, we didn't have enough friends, or the weather wasn't blue. And this is important for us because it allows us to give more details, more feedback to the user. Okay? And we're going to practice this and play around with this as we go further on. Now, because the video is getting long, I'm going to cut off and go to the next video to show you the next step that we could do. And let's try to keep our videos smaller. See you guys in the next video.